Hi, my name is Dwayne Gathers, and welcome to CivitasLA, where we feature diverse and emerging leaders who make up this dynamic region and are creating community every day and building a better tomorrow. In these bi-weekly conversations, we hear from, learn from, and are truly inspired by a new generation of civic entrepreneurs who are forging a path forward and making our region a stronger, more resilient, and connected group of citizens. Now more than ever, we aim to elevate civic discourse, foster community connections, and promote civic knowledge and engagement across the greater Los Angeles region while elevating diverse and emerging voices in the conversation. Today, we are just delighted to have calling in with us Rex Richardson, Vice Mayor of the City of Long Beach. As we continue to celebrate Black History Month this February 2021, Civitas LA takes special pleasure in highlighting the work of some of our dynamic young leaders who are moving our region forward. Long Beach, for those who don't know, is the second largest city in Los Angeles County with an estimated population of 470,000 or so people. Rex Richardson was elected in 2014, becoming the youngest council member ever to be elected in the city of Long Beach, and in 2016 he became the youngest vice mayor in the history of the city of Long Beach. Rex has been involved in the Southern California Association of Governments, recently elected to the board of the South Coast Air Quality Management District, and through his leadership has really led efforts to elevate economic opportunity and economic development in the north part of the city of Long Beach, the 9th District. So with us today, we are delighted to have Vice Mayor Rex Richardson from the city of Long Beach calling in. Rex, good morning and welcome to Civitas LA.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Dwayne.
Well, we appreciate you being on this bright early Saturday morning.
Certainly.
Rex, we always start with just a few warm-ups, and this is a way for our audience, nearby or far away, to get to know you and your Los Angeles, or in this case, your Long Beach. So let's start with a few warm-up questions. Give us your favorite restaurant or two in Long Beach.
Well, I got to tell you, it's I'm excited about a few new restaurants we've recently opened at Uptown Commons. You've got ramen, you've got Asian fusion, you've got Port Town seafood, and Main Chick hot chicken.
Excellent. We'll make sure we tag those on social media. Favorite watering hole?
I like Roxanne's Bar and Lounge. They've got a great speakeasy in the back, and they've got a tiki bar and great Latino inspired cocktails. I like Roxanne's.
I love a good tiki bar, too. Favorite place to take a visitor when visiting the region?
Well, I had my family reunion here 2 years ago. Folks from all around the country, 250 members of my family, and they really enjoyed when we took them down on the waterfront. Long Beach has a beautiful downtown on the waterfront, the Pike, and a lot of great experiences. And every time I have people in town, we have to go downtown, the Pike, and see our downtown waterfront.
Excellent. So give us a favorite hidden gem, something that we don't know.
Well, I think something that's really cool is we have an iconic library in North Long Beach called the Michelle Obama Neighborhood Library. Very iconic, very historic structure, and really serves as a landmark for our area.
Excellent. Open space is so important here in Southern California. We just love getting out in the open. Give us your favorite hike or park.
Well, most recently we expanded along the LA River, DeForest Park wetlands.
Okay.
This is 38 acres of river adjacent wetlands with bridges and ponds, and it's an opportunity in the area with very little open space to see some ducks and frogs and
Oh, wow.
wildlife and birds. So I really enjoy to take my girls to walk through the DeForest Park wetlands in North Long Beach.
That's great. Favorite street food?
I have to tell you, I have a hankering occasionally for the fruit man. There's a fruit cart right on Downey and South Street, and I have to say I do frequent it quite a bit.
Okay. Now, might be a hard question as an elected official, but favorite neighborhood?
Well, I mean, the North Long Beach community used to be considered one neighborhood, and I'd have to say the North Long Beach community. But it's North Long Beach is about a fifth of the city's population, 100,000 people. It's the size of all the cities that surround us: Compton, Bellflower, Lakewood, Paramount. So if I were to say which neighborhood within North Long Beach, I think The neighborhood that's got a lot of investment, a lot of great things happening is the Houghton Park
Houghton
neighborhood.
Park. Okay. Well, we'll look forward to visiting when the pandemic is over. This is Rex. This is great. Thank you so much. Let's begin our conversation. Share with our audience a little bit about your background, please.
Sure, sure. Well, I'm a husband and dad. I have two young girls, 6 and 3. My 6-year-old is starting out kindergarten virtually, and she's doing a great job. My 3-year-old's picking up every habit from her dad, spending time at home as she can. My wife, she just finished her doctorate at USC. She's worked there 11 years as the associate director of the business analytics program at Marshall School of
Mm-hmm.
Business. I myself, I'm born in the Midwest and raised in the South. I was born on Scott Air Force Base. My father was a serviceman. My mother was a union welder at General Motors in Missouri. But her roots are in Alabama. We spent significant time down in Alabama, deep south, small town called Palmetto with 500 people within that town. Came to California as a teenager, mostly in the San Gabriel Valley, Covina High School. What brought me to this region was I was a first generation college student at Cal State Dominguez Hills, a great educational institution with roots in civil rights. Had a great time where I served as student body president and set my roots here in Long Beach.
No, excellent. And I saw in your bio there are a number of firsts and certainly a number of youngest this and youngest that. So tell us about that.
I'll tell you, I'm fortunate to have, landed in an area with tremendous opportunity to set roots and thrive. Given my father was in the military and we moved around a lot. And my mom, the '80s were just stir crazy, and my mother and father divorced. I went to 14 public schools across five different states. So growing up, I always wanted to set roots in a community and serve. And so coming to this area, Cal State Dominguez Hills, I got an apartment in Long Beach when I was, early 20s. I bought a house in Long Beach when I was 25, and that led to getting deeply involved in the city of Long Beach and contributing an area that I saw great potential, great opportunity to own a home, set a family, and the city of Long Beach has been tremendously welcoming to be able to be here. 25 years old. Now I'm, 37. The last 12 years, I've been able to have two children at Long Beach Memorial, marry my wife at Long Beach Museum of Art. Serve as vice mayor twice in a 6-year period of time. All of those things, I'm truly fortunate to the city of Long Beach for really welcoming me in to help contribute to make our great community even better.
Sure. So you're obviously very rooted in community in Long Beach, but share with us how you got involved in community work.
Well, certainly, it's just a part of my values. My family and the way I was raised, we have a commitment to serve our community, and that value runs deep. God, family, and community is the way we've always looked at it. Numerous members of my family, uncles and cousins, they all served our nation. We have deep roots in the South and Southern values. My great grandparents were sharecroppers who built a town called Palmetto. 500 people in that town. That very town is where my mother was raised. I went to school in that town. My second grade teacher was my mother's first grade teacher. My fifth grade teacher was my aunt. A really tight knit community. And the history is that my great grandfather built that community. He built the church. He built the store. It was burned down by the Ku Klux Klan. My mother, 50 years ago this year, integrated her schools when she was in the second grade. And that deep sense of community and building community, being responsible for one another, is something I carry with me everywhere I go. So in the North Long Beach community, we are truly a family. The neighborhood associations, the organizing, that's something that's carried with me. And even coming out of college, my first job was an organizer.
Okay.
Organizer with SEIU and an organizer with faculty. And how I really got connected to the city of Long Beach in terms of service is that I was a community organizer. And when my predecessor on city council, Steve Neal, joined the city council, he asked me to come on board as a chief of staff, particularly because of my organizing roots. That theme has carried through my entire career.
Mm-hmm. And as we've had a number of community organizers and community leaders and nonprofit leaders as guests, and I'm grateful to say that you're actually our first elected official leader. So tell us about the how you got compelled to move from serving community to actually getting involved in community from an elected position and running for office?
Sure. Well, I certainly felt like I had more time. I could run for office later, but um, when I served as CMEO's chief of staff, he asked me to do one thing, and that was to employ the community empowerment model. That's why he hired me with an organizing background. Community empowerment really speaks to training and leadership development of the existing residents to be able to really weigh in on the future of their community as an alternative to other strategies, which may be, hey, let's recruit a bunch of nonprofits or community-based organizations to come in and do the work. And the difference is um, local residents are most invested to the shortest possible route to addressing the longstanding issues that have plagued their community. They are the most invested because they're the ones impacted, and by focusing there, you get to you build real community capacity and community asset. Now, if let's say we place our focus in attracting nonprofits who do great, incredible work, potentially at times your interests are divided in that you have to seek grants, you have to demonstrate the disparity in the community and the data, and that creates a negative self-interest that perpetuates over time. Hey, why does the community continue to have these stereotypes? Why does it continue to show these disparities? And over, that nonprofit, that community-based organization may need to justify it again. So, community empowerment model is a superior model, in my opinion, because it's centered on the residents, and all of us provide support and scaffolding to those residents. And so, 4 years after serving as chief of staff, investing in those residents, investing in those neighbors, when my predecessor moved on to seek an office in the state assembly, the community said, Rex is next.
Okay.
Rex is next.
Rex is next. I like that. Okay. Well, this is great. So, you've talked a lot about community and how you, have become embedded in Long Beach and North Long Beach in particular. So, for our audience, certainly not from the region, not from the U.S., define for us the community. Tell us about North Long Beach and the Ninth District. Just share with us a little bit about the characteristics of this particular district.
Absolutely. So, to understand the orientation of where this is, we're the northernmost portion of the city of Long Beach. We are along the 91 corridor. We're the only district within the city that touches the 91 corridor. We are, by population, North Long Beach is around 95 to 100,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
and we border the communities of Lakewood, Bellflower, Compton, Paramount, Rancho Dominguez, which is adjacent to Carson. And we're the exact same size of those cities.
Okay.
95 to 100,000 is the size of Compton or Carson. Um, and historically, the community has really been sent as a working families community. The landmarks are Jordan High School, TABC, the only Toyota plant on the West Coast happens to be in North Long Beach.
Okay.
And so it's I like to say we have 5 city halls closer to our district than our own city hall.
Okay.
So we're sort of on a peninsula in the northernmost part of the city. And as you mentioned, Long Beach is the 36th largest city in the nation. So this is a significant area within a large city. The city itself is larger than Miami, St. Louis, Atlanta. Many of the cities I've lived in, Long Beach is larger than those cities.
Excellent. And as you came into your work in 2014, share with us, the state of economic opportunity and the state of economic activity in the district at the time, and how has that evolved over these years?
I bought my home in North Long Beach when I was 25. I had an apartment in North Long Beach first, right out of college, and but I bought my house when I was 25 years old. And the reason I was able to get this opportunity, this is $275,000 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in North Long Beach in 2009.
Okay.
Now to put that in perspective, and it was a foreclosure short sale. This was at a time where foreclosures were rampant across America.
Sure.
And our community was hit as well. And I saw this as a unique opportunity. I always wanted to set roots in a community like Long Beach, and to buy a home was, when I was a single guy, and I moved my fraternity brothers in to help me pay the mortgage, and we figured it out. But the condition, I have to say, we were the only district in the city with no bank. We were the only district in the city with no library. We were the only district in the city without a Starbucks. I mean, Starbucks were on every corner in town. You had significant lack of investment into planning, liquor stores abundant, motels, outstanding land use that attract nuisances like human trafficking and things like that. But you also had, good bones in the community.
Mm-hmm.
The neighborhoods are very intact, high levels of home ownership, but on the corridors, lack of investment rooting back to unrest in the 90s. And so it's a community with great potential. It was a community with great potential with a lack of focus on its corridors, a lack of responsiveness to its residents.
And over the years, obviously, that has changed. And I know, there has been this uptown planning, land use, and neighborhood strategy, or otherwise known as the U Plan. What is that initiative? Who's driving it? And what are some of the results that you're seeing in terms of economic activity and investment in the district?
So you call it U Plan, I call it Up Plan, because we've gone through a process of, we are North Long Beach, the northernmost part of town. We call it Uptown.
Okay.
Uptown is inclusive of every community north of the 405.
Okay.
And so through what we've focused on is a strategy of investing into the community and setting the groundwork for a renaissance to take place in the years to come. It started with putting our money where our mouth is. Let's invest in our own public facilities. We talked about not having a bank. Well, guess what? We have the Michelle Obama Neighborhood Library, the largest, most modern library branch in the city, which is iconic and beautiful and an anchor to larger investment on Atlantic Avenue corridor. Jordan High School has invested almost $200 million into the modernization of Jordan High School. New facilities, new classrooms, new auditorium, new investments. That's an anchor to the community. We have a new fire station 12. When I took office, we were the only district with no paramedic. We brought a paramedic rescue, cut our response times by 3 minutes. We invested in our corridors. We expanded open space in our wetlands. All of those things set a foundation for the next phase, which is private investment into the community.
Okay.
Our community center, the largest community center regional park in the area that serves not just North Long Beach, but surrounding communities. Every winter, when it rained, the roof would leak and we'd have to close it down. So now we have the largest, most modern community center in the city. Now, all of that is great public investment, but in order to make sure that infill development housing happens and that you create a main street, a public living room, then you have to address the outdated land use and zoning within the community and have a current vision that protects from displacement and truly builds a cohesive community for the future. That is Up Plan.
Mm-hmm.
I proposed this in my first term. We partnered with SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments, to identify the initial seed funding for this specific plan. SCAG provided the initial tranche for phase one, and Caltrans supplied the second phase, another $800,000. So now North Long Beach has a current planning document that reduces liquor stores and prioritizes healthcare and medical opportunities and food, access to food and community resources, design guidelines and standards, housing, all the things that you need in order to make a community thrive. It sets the stage for Long Beach City College to come to North Long Beach and other community assets. And that's really what Up Plan is about. So you think about past, present, future. Past is the good bones of our community, the good history of our community. Present is the investments we're making today into our public facilities. And future is Up Plan, tying the public and the private together, centered on input from the residents.
And I appreciate that. And I'm just going to go back to your reference to Caltrans. So for our listeners, that's the California Department of Transportation. So we don't want to get too deep in the weeds with all the acronyms for those who may not know. So that's great. So obviously a lot of public investment made in the community. How has the private sector responded? And what were you seeing with regards to private investment, whether it's, residential development, mixed use development? And let's talk about activity prior to COVID. Obviously, we know last year was a difficult year overall.
Certainly, here's what I'll say. In the first quarter of the pandemic, the Long Beach State Quarterly Economic Report, which we publish in partnership with the City of Long Beach, it showed that majority of areas in our city saw as much as 59% decline in revenue. The North Long Beach community actually saw a 37% increase in revenue in the same period.
Okay.
Why is that? Well, North Long Beach has bodegas and staples, and no one could find toilet paper. They all came to North Long Beach. Our weaknesses became virtues in the pandemic, and we were on course for new development. As I mentioned, we didn't have a bank, we didn't have a coffee, we didn't have a public living room. If you wanted to go bump into a neighbor, where did that happen in North Long Beach? It actually happened in Bixby Knolls outside of North Long Beach. And so we've been on this course, and what we've seen is even through the pandemic, it still happened. We opened Chase Bank, our first bank in the community during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
It was able to open last year. We opened one. We had no coffee shops. Now we have two Starbucks open, one in construction, and one in design for this year, and two more independent coffee shops in the works for the North Long Beach community now. We were a community that didn't have many. We have great. I mean, we have some of the best food in the entire city,
Okay.
soul food and barbecue and all of these things. But folks wanted a little bit more diversity. During the pandemic, we were able to open five new restaurants and the six new restaurants in the pandemic, which are actually doing well in the way that they've been designed and all of those things. So we're seeing a good response now in terms of jobs. We have, I'd say, about 35% of our district is industrial space. It's a huge opportunity
Mm-hmm.
given our close proximity to the port, our close proximity to freeways, and what we've seen is legacy industrial space that hasn't had any proposition for redevelopment in 50 years is finally getting interest. You know, the Edgington Refinery, an old legacy oil operation in our city with about 30 acres, was recently redeveloped into a modern industrial facility. That's going to bring 800 to 1,000 jobs. It's in construction now.
Okay.
800 to 1,000 jobs with a Fortune 5 company located in the area. We're we're taking again our faults, longstanding issues, and creating virtues for the local community.
I'm going to touch on that because you just mentioned the Port of Long Beach, obviously one of the most important gateways to the United States. How are you leveraging the Port of Long Beach to further your own economic development initiatives?
Well, I think it's again with the theme of taking our faults and creating assets. The Port of Long Beach is the region's economic driver. 180,000 jobs in the region, driven by the Port of Long Beach.
Okay.
43% of all goods in America come through the combined seaports of Long Beach and Los Angeles. Now, with that, I'm a comic book fan. It says, great power comes great responsibility. That means we have to make sure that communities like North Long Beach aren't only given the environmental burden, but also are a focal point of the economic boom associated with the port. So when we think about logistics and goods movement, we have to do it in a way that's clean, invests in our communities, and creates local job opportunities with our communities. One strategy is we're bringing Long Beach City College into North Long Beach,
Okay.
and some of its training programs and linkages to the ports, into industry, into construction. We're bringing that into North Long Beach as a part of this Renaissance strategy. Another thing, I recently joined the South Coast Air Quality Management District. Long Beach hasn't had this is a large regional board representing about 17 million people across Southern California. About half the state of California is represented here, and it regulates many of the stationary sources of pollution within the region. A lot of the things that happen to intersect within my community, and we haven't had representation in 10 years. So we're in a unique position now to leverage what is a drive toward cleaner air and new technology to make sure that we leverage our local workforce and the industrial space we have to create the technologies and the industries that are going to clean our air and create economic opportunity. So it's intersectional. We just have to think about transforming our faults into assets and virtues.
No, that's great. And certainly, things were going quite well pre-COVID, of course, economic development happening. But one conversation that keeps coming up in a number of episodes, Rex, particularly with your neighbors over in Inglewood, is that all this positive activity also has, in some quarters, a downside, and that is the fear and concern about displacement. And I think folks who like yourself who bought their homes in 2009 have seen this great rise in value, but others are now coming in and driving up prices and causing concern. How are you addressing this in Long Beach?
Certainly, and no question that we are in a housing crisis of epic proportions in Southern California. And I see this front and center. I'm confronted with this as SCAG president as we deal with the regional housing needs assessment and allocations and where we build housing, where is it feasible, and how much housing is needed for the past and for the future. And so in communities like North Long Beach and in Long Beach, we're taking it head on. We've in our land use update, our land use plan, we've created space for 28,000 units in the city of Long Beach of housing.
Okay.
We recently adopted a new inclusionary housing ordinance that provides for if housing is built, 11% of those market rate housing units are set aside for very low income families. That's inclusionary housing ordinance. Our UP plan provides strategies to reduce displacement and to preserve local talent. Through over the course of the last 2 years, been a major discussion on anti-displacement policies, and Long Beach has moved forward with tenant protections and all of those things within the city of Long Beach. So the steps are certainly balanced, but there is one challenge that we have, and every community is going to have, is that in 2012 the state eliminated the redevelopment agencies.
Sure.
And redevelopment, 20% of every dollar generated was specifically set aside for the production of affordable housing.
Right.
That was the strongest tools local cities had to produce housing. Without that, cities don't have the revenue tools and incentives to truly produce at the scale that we need to produce.
Sure.
And that is an issue that every city is laser focused on and that the legislature needs to take action on.
Well, as a former CRA-LA commissioner, I well remember those days and those discussions, and I think a lot of people are missing the days of having redevelopment agencies around. I know one initiative that you launched in Long Beach was entitled Everyone In initiative. Tell us about that and how you're using that to bring everyone into to the discussion around economic development, economic opportunity, so that no one is left behind.
Well, Everyone In is it's an initiative centered on economic inclusion. EI is a play on letters. Everyone In, economic inclusion, and it's really a philosophy. And that philosophy is we have to put forward a superior growth model for our city that's more inclusive of other people. And the principle is equity. And when everyone's in, everyone wins. That's the principle. To make decisions about policy and economics that are set on a certain set of key performance indicators, like let's say how much throughput of cargo at the port, that tells one narrative, or overall unemployment within the city, that tells one narrative, but it doesn't speak to the fact that we've seen systems perpetuate disparities for generations. North Central and West Long Beach have stalled economically for generations. Now, I believe if your system produces patterns of disparity that persist, then the system is not broken. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do, but you need to recalibrate your system.
Okay.
You need to make sure your system is more inclusive and provides outcomes for everyone. Sets a common economic floor so everyone can thrive. That's Everyone In. And it's rooted in, essentially, as I mentioned, in equity. There's been progress. It started with a conversation on establishing an office of equity. I led that discussion in the city. We have an office of equity. We tackled economic equity to focus on things like procurement and empowerment zones within the city, and small businesses and working families and things like that. And now we're in a place, given last year, the tragic incident with George Floyd in Minneapolis really exposed systemic inequities and racism in government, all local governments. Minneapolis is smaller than Long Beach. They were hailed as a city. President Obama hailed Minneapolis as a My Brother's Keeper city, like Long Beach. And if a My Brother's Keeper city, like Long Beach, hailed by President Obama, could have a culture within their police department that produces the outcome of Mr. George Floyd's tragic murder, then that calls on every city, our size, larger and smaller, to re-examine our commitment to equity and the things that we have to do to truly ensure that our systems produce fair outcomes for everyone. And so last year, that all came to a head with the Long Beach Racial Equity Reconciliation Initiative that dovetails everything from equity, economic inclusion, health equity, COVID-19 pandemic, into a full review of how we can change our systems to ensure that everyone has a seat at the table and an opportunity to thrive. That's essentially this drive toward racial equity that many cities are engaged in at this point.
Well, Rex, that's great. And I note a number of your initiatives, whether it's Everyone In or the UP plan or research that we've done, there's a strong emphasis that you place and your office places on civic engagement and efforts to really, get everyone involved in the processes that you're putting forth. So what does civic engagement mean to you, and how's your office using, your role to elevate civic engagement in your district and in Long Beach overall?
Well, I personally believe it's a part of a modern government needs to have an intentional focus on civic engagement. I'm exploring the idea of establishing a civic engagement element in our general plan to make sure that it's factored into every decision that the cities make. And this goes back to our roots in community empowerment, our roots in organizing. These are not progressive or crazy ideas. This should be a common standard in government. We built neighborhood associations in North Long Beach. What was the next natural step? Well, when I first took office, we engaged in a process called participatory budgeting. Take those neighborhood leaders who've been developed over 4 years and give them a project of, we gave them a budget of $300,000 and said, how would you invest this into your neighborhood? What would you prioritize? It conducted a needs analysis that turned into projects, and they developed these projects. They worked with city staff to understand the feasibility. They developed their own capacity as leaders through that process, and ultimately had a democratic vote. That vote had the highest turnout percentage in any participatory budgeting process in North America. Now, if we juxtapose that with our election turnouts prior to recent election reform efforts, the ninth district was amongst some of the lowest voting turnout in the entire city. But when we changed the system, involved people, we had the highest turnout in North America. So when you see those things, it just shows that we have to re-envision our systems to be more inclusive, centered on people, and value their participation. So that's an example. Now we've focused on expanding vote centers within our city. We expanded the vote center to Houghton Park. We've looked at a number of different processes, and I think ultimately, again, this needs to land in a general plan, an element within the general plan focused on civic engagement.
No, that's great, Rex. And I'm curious to know, as a follow-on question, how the neighborhood council process is evolving in Long Beach. Certainly, in some jurisdictions, neighborhood councils have been, some would say, hijacked perhaps by the NIMBYs, those who don't want to see any development happening, and therefore are the bane of the existence of developers. For example, how are neighborhood council process evolving in Long Beach?
When my predecessor Steve Neal took office, we had 5 neighborhood associations in all of North Long Beach, and within our district now we have 13. We didn't have a business association. Now we have a business improvement district. We have very few nonprofits. We had Success and Challenges, Pools of Hope, and Andy Street, 3. Now we have Long Beach Opera has moved to North Long Beach. Long Beach Community Action Partnership has moved to North Long Beach. The Long Beach Center for Economic Inclusion, the Uptown Business District. All of these things have come. So we've built community capacity in order to have a more robust conversation and better decision making. And so I think it's healthy. The process of neighborhood associations, LA calls them neighborhood councils. We have neighborhood associations, and I think it helps us make better decisions as a city.
No, excellent. I appreciate that. Rex, I saw an article recently, certainly after the 2020 elections, and it was to the east of us, San Bernardino, and mentioned San Bernardino had 3 new black elected officials on the city council, and it's a majority-minority city. I know Long Beach held a panel discussion about a year or two ago on the state of black leadership in Long Beach. So as we talk about Black History Month, I'm interested to get your thoughts on black political leadership in the region and opportunities for service from your perspective, and also the work that you do to engage young black leaders in your community to serve.
Sure. We're seeing leadership develop in new areas like the Inland Empire and areas in Long Beach that traditionally haven't been represented by black leaders. In Long Beach, historically, there's been one district. Down in Eastside Long Beach, they call it, where Snoop Dogg is from, Poly High School. That was the historic black district. But if you look at demographics, up in North Long Beach is where the majority of the black population resides in Long Beach now. There's been a shift. And if we think about just the state of black leadership in general, if you think top 10 mayors in the state of California, you've got one black mayor in San Francisco, London Breed. If you think about where potential leadership exists in the top 10 cities, where are the council members, the potential leaders, the people on the bench ready to go? Where do they exist? Where are those opportunities? I think of my friend Michael Tubbs, who's doing incredible work and lost his seat. Recently lost his seat, which I thought was a tragic, unfortunate loss to the city of Stockton. And I'm sure he's going to maintain his commitment to the city. But you have to really question what scaffolding and support exists for Black emerging leaders in the state of California. Now, the legislature is one thing, but local government is where the rubber meets the road. Local government is where police departments' policy is set. That's where economic policy is set. Housing, homelessness, workforce. The front door on all of those things is in local government. And where are the opportunities in your larger cities to make sure that we have a voice? And if you really do that examination, you'll see that we really certainly need to do a better job at supporting emerging and upcoming leaders.
Sure.
Now, the other thing I'll say is there are certain institutions in place. Cal State Dominguez Hills has a tremendous legacy. If you look at the leaders around the region, many of them went to Cal State Dominguez Hills. Karen Bass, Jerome Horton, myself. It's really been a boom for producing Black leaders within the area. Cal State Dominguez Hills, President Dr. Parham is a great transformational leader there, and I think we need to do more with institutions like Cal State Dominguez Hills. And the last thing I'll say on this matter is that we have to do more to support Black women in office. We only have 2 members of the legislature that are Black women. Let's see, you have Autumn Burke and Sydney Kamlager Dove. Only 2 in the entire state of California.
Right.
You don't have a Black woman on the LA City Council. You haven't had a Black woman win an election in Long Beach since 2004. Now, at some point, we have to address institutional racism and bias within our own communities and within, the political landscape. Why are barriers thrown up for Black women to have a voice and a seat at the table when nationally we see what's happened in Georgia? We've seen the way Kamala Harris has risen, the way that we've contributed to the party nationally. What's the problem here in California, and particularly Southern California? And what do we need to do to change that dynamic to create more equity and opportunity for Black women? That's a question that I think deserves an answer.
No, I think that's a great episode for the future for sure. So Rex, as the vice mayor for Long Beach, now you're on the president of the board of the Southern California Association of Governments. Recently new to the board of the South Coast Air Quality Management District. Your own civic leadership, it continues to grow. So what's next for you in this coming year or down the road, do you think?
Well, I'm certainly hopeful for the future, but, we have to be honest about the challenges we face. Selfishly in my own community, I still want to build playgrounds. I still want to make sure that kids have quality access to open space and a pool to swim in and, things like that. So I'm going to remain focused on bringing those assets. But across the region, if we don't figure out what we're going to do around housing production, we're in real trouble. If we don't figure out how to address climate and the environment and air quality within our region, that affects life expectancy and low birth weight in Black families and Latino families and AB 617 communities. If we don't figure that out, so the work is certainly ahead of us, and we have to balance those things against real economic opportunity for families. How do we create the new industries and pathways to those jobs so people can have careers, buy homes, and ultimately provide a future for their families? That's the challenge that our generation faces, and that we need to work together to see real meaningful progress on.
And that's why leadership matters. So we look forward to following your leadership on these issues over the years to come. Well, Rex, this dialogue has been great, and we really appreciate your time, and we appreciate your service to community. Hopefully we can have you on again and discuss the progress you're making, and hopefully we can have this next conversation on location in Long Beach. We always like to have our guests offer a call to action to share a final thought on how others can get involved of the work that you're doing in your community. So what are your final thoughts, or what is your call to action?
Sure. Well, certainly thank you and for the opportunity to come and speak with you. I think we just have to remain mission focused on beating this pandemic and setting the stage for the recovery. I want to encourage folks to continue to wear a mask and continue to be responsible. We're almost at a tipping point, I believe, with the vaccinations and all of those things. So we need to remain focused. To stay in contact with me and follow what I'm doing, you can visit InsideDistrict9.com. You can also follow me at Rex Richardson LB on Twitter, at Rex Richardson LB on Facebook, and at Rex Richardson on Instagram. and I look forward to continuing our dialogue.
Well, we will look forward to having all of that in the episode notes for all to take a look at and to follow you. Rex, again, we really appreciate you, your work, and we appreciate all the positive things going on in Long Beach, such an important community within our region. To our audience, as always, thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this program, and we hope you'll share this with your friends and associates. As we always say, until we meet again, stay strong and get involved. To learn more about CivitasLA and share feedback on this program, or if you have a recommendation about future programs, please visit our website at www.civitasla.com. And if you do have time, we hope you also take our end-of-year listener survey to give us feedback on how we can improve in the year ahead. And also, please connect with us on Facebook at CivitasLA, Instagram at Civitas_LA, and Twitter at Civitas_LA. We appreciate you listening, and we hope you'll share this with others. Stay strong, get involved, and stay safe.